You know, when I worked in the corporate world, we use this concept called using a clear mirror to self-assess. So in the corporate world, there's a lot of stuff about SWOT analysis, strengths, weaknesses, and you're trying to figure out what's going on. But what we really found out was, what it really came down to was the sales rep. Like, how were they acting in the field? What were they doing with their accounts? It really didn't matter what was going on in the market. Those were all really essential things to know. But ultimately, the only thing you can control is yourself and how you're showing up in these situations. So we have this concept called a clear mirror to self-assess. And the concept is that when you're looking in a mirror, the only thing you're focused on is you. I couldn't tell you if my bathroom had wallpaper or tile. I really couldn't. Because I was getting ready. I was focused on me. And that's this whole notion of the clear mirror. So what we would have our sales reps do is when we did a quarterly review, we would have them come in and they had to review their business. They had to go through the accounts, what they were doing well, where there were opportunities, what wasn't working, where they had failures, where they needed to rethink their strategy. And it was really curious because they came in knowing exactly how they did and knowing that I was going to know exactly how they did. And it really created, though, a lot of confidence in them versus coming in and them thinking like, oh my God, am I going to get fired? I know I'm not doing well. It gave them that power and that ownership. So this is my son, Ben, when he was about 8 years old. And how many of you guys are sports parents? Yeah, lots? We've pretty much done every sport. Ben and Jack are 15 and 16 now. I mean, I had them in fencing at one point in time. Anyway, they've tried about every sport, but then they kind of got their groove and they had landed on one that they liked. So for Ben, it was baseball when he was young. And I saw this phenomenon happening at the ball fields. And I saw it at everything that I was going to with youth. And I was like, wow, we're messing up these kids. Because what would happen? They come off the sidelines and they come over to mom and dad and they say, how did I do? And what do you say? You were awesome. Like, even if they were the most tragic kid on the team, right? Like, didn't get one hit, couldn't catch the ball, knew nothing about baseball, but you tell them they were awesome. And I was like, we're really doing these kids a disservice. For one, they need to figure out if they're awesome or not. Two, they also know if they're not awesome, and now you've created some distrust. Because they're like, she said I was awesome. Like, I didn't do anything good. And they don't even know what's fulfilling, if it's working. And I was like, gosh, these kids really, we could have changed this for these kids. So I was like, you know what? I bet I could teach them how to self-assess at age 8. And if I could teach Ben how to self-assess, you guys can learn this and you can teach this to your teams too. So Ben started coming off the sidelines and I was like, okay, he came off. How did I do? And I would say, how do you think you did? Instantly, how do you think you did? My opinion really didn't matter, to be honest. I said, how do you think he did? Now, usually he would say, I was awesome, right? I mean, and he's a pretty good ball player, but we had been telling him he's very awesome for a while. And I would find something to celebrate right then. You know what? You were awesome in the second inning when you caught that pop fly. How did that feel? And he would be like, Mom, oh my God, the ball was in my glove and I couldn't even believe it. It was so amazing. And I was like, yes, okay. Okay, but let's keep talking about the game. I want to know how you think you did. What happened in the 5th inning when he struck out? And he'd almost always try to blame right off the bat, because that's what we like to do. We like to defer, right? Well, not my fault. He said, that pitcher was terrible. And I'd say, hey, Ben, I'm not talking about the pitcher. Like, you can't control the pitcher. They might throw you a curveball, they might throw you a fastball, they might hit you with a ball. And he was like, yeah, I mean, you know, Jason got binged before me and I was so worried he was gonna hit me. And then he would try to blame again, like, oh, the umpires didn't know where the strike zone was. And I'd have to remind him, hey, this is baseball, like, they call every play, like, they're gonna miss some calls. Like, you gotta focus on showing up. And so what happened that summer was really curious because we just kept turning this clear mirror back to him. And what happened was Ben got really good at baseball because he started thinking about himself in the sport. He started thinking about the plays, what he was doing really well, where he needed to work. Hey, Mom, can I get a pitching lesson? Because I really need to work on, throwing more strikes. Hey, Dad, can you come out and throw some pop flies for me? Because I missed 3 pop flies in the last game. He was using this self-assessing, and it turned into this amazing thing for him to where he wasn't asking us how he did after a game. We were talking about how he showed up, what he did well, and I will tell you that he's my junior now, and this self-assessing has transcended into his academics, into his relationships, taking accountability for when maybe he let someone down or didn't do something correctly. And he never comes to me now and says, how did I do? He had a tryout recently that didn't go very well. And he was like, I just wish I would have had, 5 more at-bats. And I was like, well, welcome to life. You know how many times I wish I had 5 more at-bats? A lot. So this whole concept of self-assessing is really how you can take yourself to the next level, because it does go back to this, yes, you're gonna have your raving fans. You're gonna have the roses in your life who want you to win, who believe in you beyond reason. But you have to become a self-led leader, and you have to learn how to self-assess so that you can be who you came to be. I told you earlier that it's only a mistake if it happens twice. The first time was just a lesson that you needed to learn. What if you ran with that? And instead of beating yourself up every time, oh, this didn't work out, damn, I messed up, whatever it might be, being like, what did I learn from this? What's my next step gonna be? So I really challenge you to start self-assessing yourself, maybe after a client call, or after a big meeting, or after you think about a project done, like, hey, what do we do really well here? Where do we need to level up? Where do we need to work a little harder? What didn't go right? And then giving people that space to have the personal accountability without worrying that they're gonna be judged or looked down on or fired or whatever it might be. And it's really creating that self space so that we can become the best version of us. It's about celebrating your strengths. Always celebrate your strengths. We don't toot our horns enough often. When you do something awesome, don't be afraid to celebrate that. And if you're a leader and someone on your team does something awesome, that's your responsibility, is to celebrate that. Uncover opportunities for better results the next time. Uncover the opportunities. And I do like to think about opportunities are like, what if I worked a little bit harder on this? That was when Ben was like, an opportunity would be, let me get a pitching lesson. Let me work on grounding, all that kind of stuff, the opportunity to get better. Again, it's really just about being the best version of you. So if you can learn how to use this clear mirror to self-assess, I promise you, you will see your success trajectory as a leader and as a self-led leader just start to amplify.